This is the last session before we present the SWIFTT platform. Session 6, we are going to welcome Luc Talini, Grégoire Talbot, and Heidi Cagliali to present the slides on biodiversity and certifications in the forest, understanding the value of biodiversity for healthy and productive forest. And the floor is yours, Luc.
So I am the neighbor. I am the cousin of the project because I'm not working in forest. I'm working, as you can see on the slide, in the rural areas. That means I work in this area between the city and the forest. And I try to help the people who are beginning the ecological transition to measure very modestly the biodiversity, okay? And here I would like to show you what we have done in our flagship project in the vineyard. And the idea is to discuss with you the possibility to extend our approach to the forest because all the team in everyone can't really want to go to the forest, especially because there is a lot of life to detect and to measure. Okay, next slide, please. So first, the flagship project. So Everyone Counts is a company based in Bordeaux, and as we are based in Bordeaux, we are working in the vineyard. Okay, you can see the picture of Château La Perruche, which for us is a big area, 40 hectares, but is very small for you. Okay, you call that a polygon? Yeah, I think it's a polygon in the forest. Okay. This is a vineyard. In the title, you can see not a natural reserve. It's exactly what the owner told me when I arrived with all my sensors and all of my technology. He told me, stop, it's not a zoo. In fact, it's not a zoo, it's a walking vineyard. Okay, but I'm going to show you that it looks like a natural reserve. 40 hectares of wine, of vineyard, they produce white and red wine, and as I mentioned it, there is only 25 hectares for the vineyard. That means that the difference is dedicated to nature. That means that they do a lot. What is it? They left place for prairies, for vegetables, for animals. There is a little forest. So it's a lot. It's more than 30%. Perhaps you know about that in agriculture. If you want to have results on biodiversity, you have to left more than 30%. Under that, you're gonna have not a very good result. There is always question when we are dealing with agriculture or vineyard. In this case, there is 5 questions. This question is very general. You find this question in all type of agriculture. There's always a question about the soil. This is the beginning of all the story for agriculture. So when we arrive, they ask us about the microbiota of the soil. They do a lot during 10 years, but they have no idea what happened in the soil. So they ask us, do I have life in my soil? The second question concerns wildlife. They made a lot for wildlife, but they really don't know. They see that there is sometimes some deer, some boars, but they really don't know what exactly happened near the vineyard. So they ask us, what is wildlife in our vineyard? And they ask us for 2 focuses. The first one is the birds, because the birds are beneficial for crops because they're eating bugs and insects, so they can eat pests for a vineyard. It's the same for the bats. So they are interested by all wildlife and especially by birds and bats. And the last question, which is, you talk a lot about that, the famous indicators. Can we have some indicators, 1 indicator, several indicators, to know where we are in our transition, to compare our vineyard with other vineyard, to compare our vineyard with other ecosystem? Okay. Next slide, please. So, My former training is medical device. So when I have question, the first thing is to collect data. So the first thing we are doing is to use sensors, but we are not doing only that. And we have decided to use sensors. We are well known by ecology for years. That means we are using cameras, camera trap. You certainly know that. Perhaps some of you have this kind of camera. This camera, motion detection camera, they can detect animal from a mouse to a bird. We also use the sound. We have acoustic and ultrasonic recorders. With this system, we can detect the birds. Today, the algorithm we are using are very robust for the birds, but I think in a few years we can also have information about the insects, about the batrachian also. And the ultrasound is very similar to acoustics, it's just for the bats. And of course, we are making soil analysis. We are using two technology, flow cytometry and DNA. I'm gonna spend not a lot of time. If you have questions, we can discuss about that, but there are strong technology to measure rapidly what you have in your soil. Next slide. We also collect, it's in the name of the company, everyone counts. So we don't only collect data from sensor, we connect everything we can find. There is a lot of open data source and maps, of course the satellite images, but also you certainly heard about that. We are very fond of the citizen science data. I don't know if you use your phone to recognize plants, but we can collect this data in the cloud. And for us, it's very important because when we arrive in an ecosystem, it's a very easy way to know what is the quality of this data are not perfect, but it's a very easy way to have an idea of what kind of ecosystem is around the real estate. And the last point, which is very, very important, is to discuss the field knowledge. The people on the field know very much about the biodiversity and about the practices and about all they are doing. And so we spend a lot of time to collect this kind of data. Next slide, please. And after, it's very simple to understand. With these three kind of sources, we have a big stack where with storage, clean, and labeling. We are literally using artificial intelligence for the labeling. And then we are making an interface for the people to see. The first thing is to see what they got. So we have an interface to visualize. We make a lot of inventory, and of course we make analysis also. Next slide. Yeah. So to make short a long story concerning the five answer, after only 12 months, which is very small in a clinical trial. In my former field, it takes 3 to 5 years to make a clinical trial. In this case, just after 12 months, we have sufficient data to have very robust statistics. So to give you numbers, we collect something like 80,000 media, sound, ultrasound, pictures, and maps. So we answer to the 5 questions. So concerning the soil, because they are doing a lot to enhance the life in the soil, we have detected that in 8 points of the real estate, the results is compared to fallow land. There is only 1 point where there is a problem of microbiota, and they are going to adjust the cover crops. I don't know if you know the cover crops is the fact that you leave the grass between the vineyard. Concerning the wildlife, they have you remember the first sentence. It doesn't look like a zoo, but it looks like a natural European grassland. We have detected something like 40 different species with the cameras. It's even more impressive for the birds. We have identified more than 100 species. So, and because we have a lot of data, we were able to make statistics to test the impact of agroecological infrastructures, about the prairie, about the raw edges, and we have made that they are all positive impact on the birds. Concerning the bats, 16 bat species, which is quite interesting, especially in a vineyard. And here the question was more precise because the bats the idea is to have the bats in the vineyard, and the bats needs trees or tower to make their eco-localization, and this is why they have planted a lot of trees inside the vineyard. And the question was, okay, we have some bats, but we want to be sure that the bats are in the center of the vineyard, and we have demonstrated that the distribution is very homogeneous. And last but not least, the biodiversity indicators, and perhaps we're going to have the next slide about the indicators. So for the indicators, we have discussed a lot with the scientists, because the idea here is to take into science what we know for a long time. So we have decided to use scientific indicators, and perhaps you're not specialist of indicators. Here you are three of the most famous indicators: the Shannon index, the Simpson index, and the last one is quite easy to understand. It's the richness specific, that means the number of species that we have detected. Why I show you this result is here you have the evolution of an indicator during the collection, and you can see we have a plate, and what we have measured in a vineyard, we need 6 months to have stable indicators. After 6 months, the indicators are very stable, and because the indicators were very stable, now we can compare the indicators, what you can see in the below, with other ecosystem. Here I have 3 different ecosystems. Etrechy is a small town, so this is the indicators in your garden in a small town. La Vallière, it's a natural park near an hotel, and La Perruche is the organic vineyard. As you can see, in the 3 indicators, the vineyard is better than the natural park near an hotel, and even better with a peri-urban ecosystem where you almost have only cats, in fact. Okay. Next slide. So what we have revealed, and we can inspire us for the forest. The first thing is the fact that we have strong difference in biodiversity between areas, even if these indicators are stable. That means if you put the camera or the sound recorder into the prairies or into the vineyard, you don't have the same. That means that it's very important to be in the ground, okay, and to choose the localization. The second point is that the fact that we can demonstrate that the key role of ecological infrastructure. The statistics shows that you can determine which kind of infrastructures have a positive, a negative, or no impact with 6 months or 12 months of collection. Okay, I don't know if it's the same in the forest, but in the vineyard and in others it is the case. Okay, you forget the last sentence, because this is a sentence of the team. They use the 3 years data to say that there is no collapse with biodiversity. I think it's too early to say that, but the indicator has stable since 3 years now, so they are very happy of the measurement. Perhaps the last slide. And why we are thinking that we can do and can put this approach to forest, the first thing is both are productive and managed ecosystem. So I think the questions are very similar. The second is both require long-term resilience. I have a discussion during the lunch. I think in forest, the long-term is bigger than in agriculture, but it's long-term. Both face increasing certification and reporting requirements, of course, in agriculture and vineyard especially. So we think that the same monitor tools the indicator can be applied to forest, and we will be very, very happy to test that with your project or with other project, because I think we can do the same in forest that we have done in a vineyard. I think this is the last one. Oh. Next slide, perhaps? Okay.
Thank you very much, Luc. I think there is one question already from internet. 2 questions.
Thank you. 2 questions, actually. So, regarding soil health, Do you know Varda Soil Hive Initiative?
No.
Okay, I will send you the link.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, and if the person wants to elaborate, maybe they can just unmute and elaborate on that. Emmanuel Mondon. Then Anvesh Baluguri is asking, what are the factors that attracts life to vineyard, and is it the food available? And if so, what about data during the season of the year when there is no food? So, for example, winter.
Okay. The main point is not what is interesting for the wildlife in vineyard, is the fact that you leave some space around the vineyard. In fact, the hotspot we have, the hotspot is a point where we put a camera and a sound recorder. Inside the vineyard, we have indicator very low. In fact, the wildlife is around the vineyard. And concerning the season, what we have seen in the vineyard, the indicators are quite stable, and the indicators are higher in summer and in winter. And we think it's linked to the human activity, in fact. Okay. So in summer, everybody is in holidays, and in winter, nobody is in the winter. So it's not a question of food.
Thank you. So Emmanuel Mondon said about Soil Hive, it's a collaborative platform developed to aggregate soil data across different data sources to make this data more available. So, and then Anvesh says, thank you.
Good.
And we have a question in the crowd.
Thank you very much, Samuel Oldeno from PFC, and very interesting presentation. I would like maybe very interesting results as well. But the question is the scalability of it. What is the cost per hectare to have this analysis on 42 hectares? Knowing, for example, in certification here in Belgium, it's 300,000 hectares. How could we scale that kind of things to a level where, of course, monitoring, as you say, certification asks more and more data, and we are data poor on that kind of things. How could we scale that from 42 hectares to very large scales?
In fact, the question is the resolution. As I mentioned very rapidly, in a vineyard or in agriculture real estate, there is a big difference between the hotspots. That means you need, I guess, something like 4 to 5 hotspots for 50 hectares. That means one spot for 10 hectares. And I return to you the question, what is the homogeneity of a forest? In fact, this is the point. I guess that it's more homogeneous. That means that with perhaps we can have a hotspot for 100 hectares, something like that. And in this case, I think we can scale the cost. Okay. So I ask you the question, do you have a real difference in the biodiversity you see in a forest? You see just the fact that you understand that in the middle of the vineyard, you have nothing, and just in the prairie, you have a lot of animals.
It depends for everything on how you scale it. If you take a scale of 1 kilometer on 1 kilometer on 100 meters on 100 meters. So that's what we call diversity. Depends the scale you're taking and who you are on the spectrum from. You have different spectrums about diversity and how they perceive it.
But the question is, if we can test that to have a hotspot with 100 meter between 1 kilometer between, and to obtain the indicators and to see if there is a big difference. I guess that there is no big difference in 1 kilometer in a homogeneous forest. In a vineyard, it's impossible. Okay, you have a huge difference.
Thank you very much, Luc. We have to move on. So if there is any further questions, we can use the break for that. We're welcoming now Grégoire Talbot from Decarbonize to speak.
Thank you, Luc. It was very interesting. So my name is Grégoire Talbot. I'm the founder of the company Decarbonize. I don't know if you have the view on the screen. Um, so, okay, thank you. So the goal of the company is to help companies, industry to reduce the carbon footprint and to reach net zero. So maybe today I will give you another view, on the view of the industry, the view of the company who are polluting, who are emitting a lot of CO2. And our job is to help them to reduce the carbon footprint and to compensate to be net zero. So we have project in more than 50 countries, and we have about 300 customer, and 50 of those customer and big industry like Alstom, Aperam, Bridgestone, and other big company like this. So what we do for those company, we help them first to measure the carbon footprint. So we measure the company footprint, we measure the provider of those company, and we measure the product of those companies. Next, we are doing the planification. So we help them to define the roadmap. And today, what need the market is not anymore to have a roadmap to save the planet, but they need a roadmap to save money. And that's the focus of the industry today is, okay, to have a carbon roadmap, but it should be profitable. So that's one of our focus today with the company, and we are looking for direct return after 1 year. And if it's not possible, they don't do it. That's the mindset of the industry of today. When we have defined a profitable roadmap for the companies, we help them to reduce. So that means that we select the best solution to reduce, and we follow up, and we follow up the budget to be sure that it will be profitable at the end, and we help them also to get labels, to produce reporting, or to be in line with the regulation. And at the end, when the company has reduced significatively his carbon footprint, we help them to be carbon neutral by buying carbon credit and making carbon credit. I will come back on it afterwards. So just an example, that's a company that we help. It's they produce oil from seeds. They produce oil, they produce soaps, they produce chemical oil for the industry. They have different, they are in different countries, and they have different entities. And what we did for them, we did what we call a physical modeling. That means that we split all the value chain of the company, and we analyze what they buy, what is the logistic, how they transport the raw materials with a boat, with a train, with the trucks. What we measure, what the production, we measure the energy, we measure the asset, we measure the usage, the mobility of the company, the asset, and the end of life of the product. So we measure everything on the company, and we try to get metrics, and we try to get kilowatt per hour, and we transform all of this in ton of CO2 to have at the end two things: a carbon footprint and energy flow to be able to reduce that. Next step is to select all the best solution for our customer, and for each solution we try to define what will be the gain of CO2, what will be the investment, and what will be the return on investment. And at the end we have a beautiful curve of cash flow, and we try to help them to finance them. When we have identified that we need, for example, 200K to invest in the roadmap, we can go to the bank, we can go to investor, we can go to get grants from the market to help them to finance this. And today it's possible for the industry to not invest any cash for the carbon roadmap, but with the help that they can find, they can reduce. And at the end, what we do is we help them to to buy carbon credits, and it's the link between the conference of today. So some of them would like to buy credits, but has the previous question at the beginning, there are some doubts today. Where goes my money? Or it is accountable on the long term. So most of them would like to make their own carbon credits. So today we are in a project to gather about between 10 and 20 companies, so of my client. We gather them to create a fund to invest in new project to make carbon credit. So if someone here have interesting project and you are looking from financing, they are looking, but with some specific rules. So it should be a high level of quality carbon credit. It should be, we need to follow them with a technology MRV, and we have a lot of specification to have high quality carbon credit. What we do also, it's we try to convince our customer that to invest in the carbon credit could be profitable for them too. So the idea of the fund is that each company will invest more money than they need to be for the needs to be carbon credits, and 25% of the carbon credits they get as dividend, and 75% they sell on the market to get a return. So today it's possible also for the companies to invest to be carbon neutral and to get a return on investment on their investment. And to make a link with the biodiversity, today there is no credit, official credit for biodiversity, but when a project has a good biodiversity effect, the value of the carbon credit can increase by 50%. So that's important in all of the project that we finance. It's to have a good dimension about biodiversity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Do we have any questions in the crowd or on internet? Yes?
Thank you. Sorry, quick question for Decarbonize. Did you already sold some credits in Belgium? And if yes, what was the price? And if not, what would be your price estimation per ton?
So we sell carbon credit for Belgian companies, but the carbon credits didn't come from Belgium. So it's carbon credits coming from Senegal, from a mangrove project or reforestation. The problem today is that to get the market, the industry needs certification because they have shareholders, they have audits, they are in the stock market, so they need a paper to prove that what they do it's in line with the regulation. And the problem today is to get carbon credit. For example, you need more than 1,000 hectares of reforestation to be profitable linked to the certification. So the cost of the certification is so high that you need large surface. It's about 1,000 hectares.
Any other questions? I might have just one, and then we have to move on. But if you have a forest, because this is what interests us today, how do you, what are the conditions to actually get a certificate?
So the condition to have a forest, to have credits from your forest is you need to it should be you can get carbon credits if the nature cannot do the job without the carbon credits. So if the forest will come naturally or the vegetation will grow naturally, you cannot get carbon credit. But if you do more than that, and if you can finance extra from nature or restoration of a forest, for example, replanting a forest, that you can get carbon credit.
Thank you very much. And if anybody else has more questions, they can ask you at the break, I suppose.
Thank
And
you.
we welcome now Heidi Kagali from PFC International.
Can I stand?
Of course you can.
Good, thanks. Because I don't see anything there. Okay, well, me again. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about biodiversity. Thanks so much for also setting the ground for this presentation. So very interesting. How do we demonstrate nature positive? So at the moment, as I mentioned before, certification is quite qualitative. So what we're looking for is exploring the ways how we can integrate more data, and that's of course for biodiversity, but also for other aspects that demonstrate sustainable forest management achievements. So that would be positive contribution to soil and water, also social aspects, carbon, and so on and so forth. So let's see what we have done and what we're planning for the future. So a little bit about the big picture of PFC. You can see here the map where we operate and the countries that we have a PFC member. Those countries are marked in green. To understand a little bit the scale of PFC certification, so we almost have 300 million hectares worldwide. This is actually 2 times the European forest total area. And in EU, we have EU 27, we have 47% of the forest certified under the PFC standards. So there is a lot of access, and that includes more than 850,000 forest owners. This is data that we collected quite recently. You also see that most of the EU 27 countries have a PFC member, so only I think 2, they don't. So a little bit about PFC I also mentioned before, so I'm not going to tire you with this. Why nature positive is important, why everyone is talking about biodiversity. So there are a lot of reasons. Of course, what affects us the most here in Europe is legislation, but there is a whole kind of ecosystem of different actors that contribute to that shift. Of course, it starts from global policy. You can see here the Paris Agreement, the Global Biodiversity Framework. All these frameworks kind of set the tone of what individual countries are putting on the regulation. And of course, for EU, because we have also umbrella regulations, this sets the tone for EU legislation. Of course, EU also have their own ambitions for all these aspects. So you see that there are new strategies published quite often. So there is a lot of material to go through and a lot of kind of effort from everyone involved to keep up with the updates and adapt their systems and ensure that they are compliant for the future. So, for example, PFC participates in a lot of these processes, either through stakeholder consultation or, for example, for nature credits, we have a member of our team sitting in the expert working group. And in general, we just try to monitor the processes and ensure that the existing systems are showcased, and as I mentioned before, everything kind of ties smoothly together rather than having competing systems. And then there is corporate responsibility. So consumers and buyers' demand drives a lot of that. So there are a lot of reporting frameworks right now emerging, other ones that there now don't exist anymore. For example, in Europe, CSRD reporting frameworks, GRI, science-based targets, ISO just published biodiversity standard. They're actually publishing more standards for biodiversity dynamics in forest landscapes, which I'm a part of this working group as well. TNFD, Task Force on Nature-related financial disclosures, they're very much kind of tied together with the Global Biodiversity Framework. So there are so many frameworks out there and so many indicators. And the difficulty today is just to match everything with something else and ensure that people are measuring the right things and they're having meaningful results that, you know, achieve something. So just to give you an indication of how important this ESG element is, we have a brochure that shows how PFC certification supports reporting towards these frameworks. and it has been downloaded by 10,000 different companies, which most of them are like big multinational corporations that operate globally. So a lot of interest, and it's kind of what drives everything forward these days. So what do we want to do about this? First of all, we have a system that has been around since the 90s. So although it has evolved, the developments right now are a lot faster than they used to be, right? So we have to adapt fast. So we have the qualitative requirements. We want to make them more streamlined to deal with the different land uses that we have included in our system. So not just forest, but also agroforestry and urban forestry. And those qualitative requirements usually translate on kind of compliance binary result, like yes or no compliant, okay? But what we also want to add is a layer of measurable indicators, and I was happy to see the biodiversity indicators and Luke presentation, because what we're trying to find is those indicators that would give us the answer about the questions. So is there, for example, no net loss of biodiversity in forest X? Is there biodiversity net gain? What are the indicators that really gives us the answer? And we can say with confidence that we're not just with the word that we are doing sustainable forest management, but we can also show it in numbers, okay? And in that way, how we can aggregate this data and create global impact. So we know that in the places where these requirements are applied, this is kind of the collective achievement. We have a lot of questions about all of that, and we're doing a lot of research, and we talk also with USPA and the Environmental Space Agency, and we work with consultants. And the question is how we can create with the publicly available data that exists now, because there's the most cost-effective solution, a result that is has a lot of integrity in it. Okay, so this is our kind of difficulty here between screening data and audit grade data. Screening grade data and audit grade data. So the level of accuracy and the level of confidence for this data, how we can kind of mitigate the need for accuracy with the cost effectiveness of this. So that's something that we're dealing with. We have some members that are already working towards integrating biodiversity or other ecosystem services in the standards. For example, PFC Italy already have a module. However, international level, we don't currently cover ecosystem services, but we hope to. So what we're doing at the moment, so we have a concept, okay, where we know kind of where we want to get to. We know what we have achieved so far, and we ask ourselves what value we can bring, okay? Additional value to the supply chains, the consumer, to civil society, to buyers. So the first step was to engage with the consultant. This was to kind of map the market, so to see whether there is demand for data, what kind of demand, what kind of data, what kind of indicators, what kind of technologies, and what would be our strategy to identify the kind of the path forward. The next part is where we are actually at the moment. So we are researching the indicators that match all these different frameworks, reporting frameworks that I told you before, legislation, our strategy. So in order to find kind of a good list that it's not very long, hopefully, and can give us the results that we want. And then also to review the requirements that we have right now. So which requirements work well? Is anything missing? Is anything obsolete? So we're really like asking ourselves a lot of these questions. And the most important part, and I hope maybe we have some engagement after that. So we're doing extensive stakeholder consultation. And at the moment, we have identified over 30 stakeholder types, and we want to engage with more than 100 organizations to basically do interviews and ask what the users want from our standards. So we really want to kind of prepare well for the revision that will come in the coming years and learn more from you. So if you'd like to contribute to the standard development, please get in touch. I will have my email in the end of the presentation. That would be great. but of course, for standard development, you see there is a certain process. So once we collect all this information, we have to get approval from the PFC Alliance or from all our members worldwide. They need to agree with the approach. And then there is a call for working group members. So that means different organizations, representatives participate in these working groups, and the standards are developed gradually. It's not a very short process, it's a bit long. There is more stakeholder consultation, and of course the final standard still needs to be approved by the PFC family. So, well, what we're looking after is a solution for forest managers and supply chain actors. We want to create an environment of inclusive and accessible growth, access to ecosystem services and credit markets. So as I said, how we can facilitate the access to them rather than creating new requirements of our own. Support legal and ESG compliance. Well, we already support legal compliance, but of course ESG in a more meaningful way, more data-driven. And of course demonstrate impact of sustainable forest management, which I'm sure all of you here know that it has impact, but how do we quantify it? How do we use it to talk to policymakers as well? So, reduce complexity, enhance integrity, harness available technology, and optimize audit time spent on site is also some of our targets. And I think that's the last slide. So yes, those are our contacts from some people, and we hope to engage with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Heidi. Very interesting presentation. We'll have to keep the questions for the break, so if you have any, please use the 10 minutes now that we're going to use for break. We'll meet then in 10 minutes. And thanks again for you guys for the presentation.